Hey guys, so today I want to show you something, how to make animations through code. So this animation, for example, I made it through the code. And you would need a sprite sheet, of course, and whatever else. So when you first drag in a texture, you set up the importer however you want, multiple, put on point for 2D sprites. And then you would go here to the animation window. I'll just make a new one to show you if you don't already know. Name it whatever you want. Then you would take these individual sprites, drag them in, put the first one again so it would loop nicely, and then you would make an animation like this. But let's say you have a very, 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 very large sprite sheet. So for example, like this. And this has a ton of different animations and they don't all line up correctly. So let me see if I could actually find this and show you this. Alright, so this is the overlay for this. So as you can see, the walking frames are not all on one line. They're not, not everything's lined up correctly. And there's a ton of animations, and there's 4 of these sheets. So there's a lot of animations, and each one of these characters, this is just the base of the character. Each one of these characters has a bottom, a top, a hair, or something. As you can see, yeah. So making these by hand is not ideal. So that's what I want to show you how to do here with something simple like this. So I already wrote the script to keep it super simple. I made a totally new project. I just selected the 2D square and then I just pressed new and that's it. That's all I did. I made a editor folder and a C# script called Clip Creator. And here's the actual script I created. And let's see, what else did I make? Nothing. These are all just a bunch of testing stuff and where to save it. And also, yeah, I made this folder called Save Clips for like a save path, which you ideally want. Alright, so let me explain how this works. What you want is an editor window, which is what this is. So let me close this. So you create an editor window, and as you can see here, mine is under Tools/Clip Creator. So it'll be here at the top, Clip Creator, and it'll open this window. Let me close this. Okay. So what you need to do is make a static void, show window. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it banana, whatever you want. And then you would get this window, since we're not making like a custom menu. Also, I should say this too. You have to use Unity editor, use a Unity editor, and inherit from editor window in order to use this and make it an actual window. And this would just be the title of the window, as you see right here. Okay, and another method you want is onGUI. So what onGUI does is update this window itself. It's like an update method for this window, basically. And I found this really nice method online. It's here. I'll link it below in the description, I guess. But I just changed it just a little bit. Instead of returning, let me show you actually. So what this guy did was return a texture 2D. He would get it from the field and then return the result. So what I did is I just made it a void and instead declared a private property texture 2D called text, and then I set it according to the field itself. So this begin vertical, this is all this stuff is just fluff. This is all fluff. So this is the basic. This is like the big part of this method. So what it does is just make an object field, casts it as a texture 2D, and sets the width and the height, as you can see here. You could change it whatever you want. Anyway, the texture you want to make from here would be text, and then you would have to make text equal to whatever's in the field in order to have it show up and be used. So really quick, each of these frames are a sprite, and this whole thing is a texture. So you want the texture and drop it in the field, just like that. So yeah, you could just copy paste it from here, or whatever you want to do. So anyway, that explains the texture field part. The next thing you want is a button that would create the actual clip. So all you have to do is GUI layout dot button, give it like a name, which is what I did there, and then call the method that would create the clip. And this is the actual clip. Uh, this is the actual thing that makes the clip. So first thing you want to do is get the path of the texture, and this can be used also to slice the sprite with the script as well. Instead of slicing it all of them manually, you can slice it through the script and then have it in there, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, so yeah, you want to get the path using asset database.get asset path, and then you could just use the object itself or the instance ID, it doesn't matter. So yeah, this would return the path. So my path is right here, asset / grave robber underscore idle.png. It would return that. Next thing you want is get an array of the sprites, and this gets a little bit complicated. This uses system.link to sort of cast each, because this loads objects, so you have to cast them as a sprite, and we have to order it because sometimes they don't go like 0, 1, 2, 3. Sometimes they go like 0, 1, 10, 100, 2, 20, 200, and so on. For whatever reason, Unity does that. So what we want is asset database.load all assets at path, and since this is the path, these are all the assets at that path, each sprite, and that's what we want. We want all the sprites. So where x equals sprite, so this is just in case, like let's say you're using like a directory to get the files, directory.get files under system.io, then it would also return like meta files or something. So anyway, this is just to be safe. So wherever it's a sprite, so you don't get any meta files, and then you cast them as a sprite, and then you would order them by, this is very custom to me, because the name of the thing itself, like I said, is grave robber underscore idle, and then each name of the sprite is grave robber underscore idle underscore 0, 1, 2, 3. So what you want to do is get rid of that prefix, and then parse the integer, which would be 0, 1, 2, 3, the frames, and then order it by that, by a number. So if you don't understand that, then I don't know how else to explain it. Anyway, and then finally you would cast it to an array. So this would just be a sprite array. I don't even have to put var anymore. This would just be a sprite array. And that's exactly what we want to get from this. Okay, so now the actual clip creation. So we have our texture, we got all the sprites from the texture. And now we want to make the clip of this sprite sheet. And like I said in my other project, it gets very complicated really quickly, so you have to set like a specific frame. So for example, this is 24 by 25, so you would have to start the walking here at 0, this at 8, and then it would load all like that, and you would start it here. It gets really complicated. So anyway, this is simple. I'm keeping it simple. So we're just going to start with this one animation, this one sprite sheet. So what you want to do is make a new animation clip in memory by doing animation clip, new animation clip, and then you could also change the settings itself. So the settings are found here. The main one I changed like ever was loop time, so you would have a loop or not loop. There's also other settings. If you go under debug, yeah, there's a ton of other things. Loop blend orientation. I don't know what half of these do, to be honest. I just know Mirror just flips it, flips the animation, and yeah. And this is another thing that I'll explain in a second. So we do that. If you want to do custom settings, you can do animation clip settings. You have to make a new instance of it and then set whatever you want. Like I said, loop time. I believe this is set by default, but I would do this just to be safe, I guess. And then you have to actually apply it to the clip that we made here. Apply the new settings, and you can do whatever you want with the new settings here as well. There's other stuff, start time, stop time. Yeah. Okay. So the editor curve binding is where this begins. So when we made that first animation, when you drag in that first sprite, it creates an editor curve binding here at 0. And that's what you have to do. Yeah, you have to create the initial binding in order for the PPTR curve to instantiate itself, basically. It's like sort of like initializing an array. So anyway, as you can see here on the right, this is where the actual information goes. But here it doesn't show the time, which is what gave me like the most issue of figuring out how to do this. So I'll explain that in a second as well. So you want to make the initial binding, editor curve binding .pptr curve, and the in path is that I just leave it blank. I'm not sure what that does, but it doesn't bother me by leaving it blank. You have to set the type. The type is sprite renderer because you want the sprite renderer to change with these sprites over that amount of time. And then lastly, the property name is given by Unity, which is m_sprite. So there you go. We made the initial binding. Now we want to declare an interval. So as you see, how I placed it here was every quarter second it would be another frame, and then it would loop, nicely. It would loop nicely every quarter frame. You can make it faster, you can make it whatever you want. I'm just doing every quarter second. So another important thing is object reference keyframe, which are each of these is an object reference keyframe. So you have to make an array of these equal to the amount of sprites you have plus 1, and the plus 1 comes from this initial frame being repeated. So look, if I delete it, if you just put like the regular 1, 2, 3, 4, it loops weirdly because it instantly goes from this to this. It's like it doesn't give it any time. That's why it looks kind of jerky. But if you have this last frame, that'll tell this frame to continue up to here, and then this will instantly go back to this, and that's how that works in general. So that's why we have the plus 1 here. So you want to initialize that array and then loop through it, and then forget about this check for now. But basically every time you want to have the time itself, which is this 0, 0.15 or 0.30 and 1, you want that equal to I times your interval. So at 0 times a quarter second is 0, and then 1 is quarter, 2 is half, and so on. And then you want the actual sprite itself to be placed at this same position. So the value here would be the first frame. The value here would be the second one, and so on. And that's where this check comes in. If we're at the last, if we're at the length, if we're at the last one here at 1 second, we want it to repeat the first frame. So that's why I put 0 here instead of I. But the interval stays the same because we want it at 1 second. And yeah, that's it. It's really that simple. And then what you want to do is you have to apply the settings just like we applied the settings here. You have to apply the reference curve to the clip. So you use animation utility set object reference curve, and then the clip we made, new clip, you have to have the initial binding, which is here, and then the keyframes, which are here. And then the save path itself, like I said, I just made it here. You could copy this path, and then you should probably cache it here and put in a text field or whatever you want to make it look nice. But again, I'm keeping it super simple. So this is my save path, and then use asset database dot create asset to make the actual clip. So an important thing here is that the path ends with this prefix .anim because the animation itself, as you can see, is ends in .anim. Let me show you one that I made manually. Save clips .anim, .anim, .anim. All of these are .anim, so they have to have this suffix. So you have the save path slash whatever you want the name to be. I just put test. You could again put another property field up here, make a text field of it, and then set the name whatever you want it to be. I like to be very specific. Like with this one, as you can see, I have a ton of frames and a ton of different things, a ton of frames and a ton of different animations rather, and I name them like this, like female, because a female, a footman is the race. I mean the class. A base is just as base, just a skin. Attack bow is the animation and the direction. So I keep it very, very specific so you could easily find them through the code as well. Because if you're looking for stuff that you have already made and you want to skip over it or whatever, then you would do it that way. Anyway, yeah, I like to keep it as specific as possible, but for here, it's just keeping it simple. And then you have to save the assets. This is sort of like applying it here and applying it. You have to save it like this because it's it's Unity. So I'll show you this in action. We'll delete the one I made. Then there you go. Just creates the clip, and it works perfectly. So I'll show you, like, let's say we wanted it every 8th second, it'll be twice as fast, right? Create the clip, go here, and now it's twice as fast. And now we got an error. This is just an editor thing. Don't worry about that. Yeah, so that's pretty much the basics. Another thing you really need to do is apply these to a controller, and I guess I'll get into that next time in another video. So if you like this video, if this helped you at all, just subscribe, and or just wait for the next video, and I'll hopefully show it to you soon. Thanks for watching.